This is the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. You might just learn something.
I think you'll enjoy it.
The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production. And now, here's your hosts, Jordan Hammond and Andrew Plaw.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the PowerShell Podcast. I am Jordan, along with the rock that makes everything possible, Andrew Plaw.
You know what I'm cooking?
Yeah, today, we're not even going to wait for the guest because everyone's waiting. This is the greatest of the Petties. We got James Petty.
Hey,
James,
thanks for having me. Yeah, glad to be here.
James, you're a busy guy. You're doing all kinds of things. What type of stuff do you do in the PowerShell world for those who are unfamiliar with James Petty, whoever they may be?
Yeah, explain it to those three people that have not learned yet.
Yeah, so I do a few things. So I'm the conference chair for the PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit. I help run PowerShell.org and the DevOps Collective. It's kind of the legal entity behind that. I help run the PowerShell user group here in Chattanooga. We're getting that back up and running. We also do PowerShell Saturday here in Chattanooga. It's called PowerShell on the River. I'm on my second PowerShell book. So the first one I did was learn PowerShell Scripting in a month of lunches, 4th edition. It's been out about a year or so now, and just wrapped up the technical edits on the second book, learn PowerShell Scripting in a month of lunches. And then I also teach at the local community college here in town. I teach a class from 8 to 9, Monday through Thursday.
That is a few things. Plus a couple of.
I don't want to say that list has left me underwhelmed, but I'm whelmed.
I'm whelmed as well. Before we cover the book, because I definitely want to hear about that and introduce that to our audience, but PowerShell.org, that is a website, that is a thing. What is PowerShell.org? What's the purpose of it, and what kind of useful resources does it have?
We have tons of resources. So the main PowerShell.org itself is kind of a repository for people who want to write blog articles but don't want to go through the hassle of setting up their own, their own infrastructure, whether it be WordPress, Ghost, or whatever it is you want to do, GitHub pages. It takes a lot of work and kind of a lot of time and money, to be able to do those things. So if you're interested in being a guest contributor on PowerShell.org, you can always shoot me a message. That's admin@PowerShell.org. That'll come to me and the website team, and we can get you set up. We also have loads of free books on there under our resources. Go to free books. It'll take you to our LeanPub bookshelf. There's a bunch of free books up there, most of which were initially written by Don Jones, and then a lot of them have been subsequently updated. And then we also have our YouTube channel. If I'd have known you were going to ask a question, I would have had the stats up. But, we get hundreds of thousands of views a month on all of our content that we have set up on our YouTube channel. What they are recordings from all the past summits from 2016 up. So 2016 through 2023 are on there as well. And 95% of that content is still definitely relative today. And then we also have the forums, so forums.powershell.org. We have some fantastic moderators that are on there. We get I think it's close to 100,000 unique visits every month to the forums, to the tune of 12,000 unique questions being asked every month. So definitely a lot going on there. So it's very similar to like Stack Overflow or a place like that. Like if you have a question, you are not the first person to ever have that problem in the world. If you are, we should probably talk because that makes you very unique. But anyway, if you have a problem, you can go on there. It's pretty high probability that someone else has already asked and answered that question for you. And if not, type it in there, and Olaf will probably answer it for you within a couple hours because he is one of our best moderators that we have out there.
Hey, shout out Olaf. There's also some other cool resources. I really like the calendar, the community calendar, to see what kind of events are coming up. And also, if I may say, I love the podcast section where you can see different podcasts, including ours, that are posted to their feed. Very cool. Appreciate you doing that. But Jordan, on the topic of podcasts, we have one right here. And you know what we're looking for? we're looking for some feedback. So if you have some feedback that you'd like to share, we have a forum, a survey asking about your favorite episodes, getting some feedback on segments you'd like to see, ideal length, all the good stuff, Jordan. Feedback helps.
So for those that are listening, this is Andrew acknowledging without acknowledging that I botched the intro and saving me from the beating that Kelly would give me.
Fourth wall, we don't have it.
Yeah. So, but yes, the survey for our podcast is important because we want to improve. We like what we have here, but it doesn't mean it's perfect, and we like new ideas. So please help us out with that one.
And while you're at it, what's one survey without another? So let's check out the sysadmin survey. PDQ is kicking off its third annual State of System Administration survey, and we'd love your input. Last year, we surveyed over 1,001 IT pros to understand salaries, popular IT tools, cybersecurity trends, and the one true pronunciation of, how do you say it this week, Jordan?
GIF still.
A GIF still. Okay, that's fair. Keep it correct. So take our survey and help us gather insights into what IT looks like right now.
So that one is closing 4 days from when this episode is dropped. So if you are keen, time is running short. Let us know.
Yeah, get in there in November. If not, farewell. Check out the report when it comes out. James, back to PowerShell.org, my friend. I will say thank you to you and everyone else who has contributed to PowerShell.org. The books are really fantastic resources just in general to have an org out there advocating for PowerShell, not just talking about it, but kind of living it. Really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a labor of love. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
Definitely. And I know there's a lot that also goes into summit planning and putting on an event like that, which so many of us on the podcast spend a lot of time kind of reminiscing about, and serves as, for a lot of us in North America, our central yearly meetup. Good time.
Yeah. We like to think of Summit as it's a big meetup. It's really what it is. It's not a big conference like Ignite or VMworld or anything. It's a big meet. It's just a meetup that happens to have some of the best and brightest people in the IT field coming and presenting for you.
Doesn't get any better than that. And at the time this goes up, CFPs are closing. But I'll tell you what, I am getting my submission in today on the last day to enter to speak. And I saw something on LinkedIn, which is really cool. One of the on-ramp people from last year, Jasmine, submitted a session. So it's always cool to see new people submitting. And I think that one thing that you really push for Summit is getting first-time speakers. So how are the first-time speakers signups going this year?
Yeah, so they're going great. So I haven't looked at the stats since like lunch today, but this morning we woke up we were at 100, or was it? I don't remember the exact number, but over 50 sessions came in the last 24 hours, which was like, we know people like to wait to the last minute. We don't quite know that many people like to wait to the last minute. And then I know I haven't looked at it since then, but my phone won't stop going off with all of the sessionized emails. But last time I took the stats, so this was 2 days ago, I think it was like just over 25% of the unique speakers that have submitted were first time speakers. Our goal is about 25%. So it's always fantastic to hear. Through the years, we can't just keep having the same people over and over. We have to get the new blood in. We have to get new people. People like Jasmine. Jasmine was like you said, was in our on-ramp program last year, and now she's presenting. She took advantage of our mentorship program, so she worked with Joe Hughes as well to kind of help. Say, hey, I had this idea, but I don't quite know how to put it down on paper. So they were able to work together to kind of create this is what a good abstract looks like. Here are your talking points. Maybe here's how we can redo your session a little bit. So she definitely took advantage of that as well. So I have absolutely no input on the content, but I'm rooting for her.
Awesome.
So getting help from probably the most frequent speaker in the PowerShell community, that's not going to hurt.
No, and she was one of the few people that actually took advantage of the mentorship program that we offered. So, awesome. And also, once the sessions go out, we'll, especially those first time speakers, we'll offer some kind of mentoring, kind of help getting ready leading up to, because we know it can be very nerve wracking getting up and speaking. in front of 100 of your closest friends.
Yeah, and people you look up to and maybe you've learned a lot from. It can definitely be an experience, but you come out the other side better off for sure. I remember my first year at Summit, they were the lightning demos, and I was a bit nervous, but I got up there and did a lightning demo and left with a bit more confidence that I could do this again, and eventually came back and gave a full session. So Summit is the place to do it. It's the place to push your boundaries. It's the place to walk up to people and talk to them and enjoy all that it has to offer. And it's been such a cool thing to see for so many how it has played such a role in their professional growth. Love seeing that. And then you see that speakers come back year over year, and it just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, so we have our same core group of speakers that come back. Anthony Nocentino, Justin Grody, Mike Nelson. Just a few people who are always come back every year. And then the new faces. We had Michael. I don't remember Michael's last name. He's from France. It was his first time speaker last year. He's presenting again. I think most of our speakers from last year are coming back, so we'll have a lot of repeats. But that doesn't mean that you're obviously not presenting the same subjects. But
right.
It's definitely a good time. It's a bunch of introverts who just happen to all be in the same room together.
Yeah, and it kind of is magical when that happens. First time I went, I was like, whoa, these are my people right here. This is perfect. Like, no, we're not all the exact same, but we have this kind of shared perspective and so many shared experiences working in IT, learning PowerShell and all that it really makes for a very cool week when you combine it with the kind of kind nature and openness of the community. It's real nice. There's a lot of people out there who have been walked up to when they were kind of standing alone in the corner, and they're now very comfortable walking up to people standing alone in the corner and introducing them.
So this is when my first summit, I think the only person I talked to is Andrew, and that's just because if Andrew's going to talk to you, you're going to talk to Andrew. But I avoided almost all conversation the first year, and then each year I've had a little bit more. And I don't know, it's a way better experience if you just join in.
Yep. Now there are some changes this year to Summit, right?
A few changes, the most notably being that we are moving venues. So, for those of you who've been following us, we've been at the Marriott for the last 2 years. So we're moving back to the Maiden Bower. So we're just 4 blocks down from where we were. Also kind of not where we started, but we've been there a long time. They recently did some renovations. It's just a fantastic venue. We'll have the whole place to ourselves again. So conference or the breakout rooms will be on the first floor. We're going to have we'll have breakfast and lunch. Our meals will be down on the second floor. We're bringing back mid-morning and mid-afternoon snacks. And for those that are asking, yes, all-day coffee is coming back.
Nice.
You'd be amazed how many people want their coffee at 2:00 in the afternoon, but all-day coffee coffee is coming back. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're also moving conference hotels. We've been at the Marriott since they opened in 2016. It's a fantastic property, but we just we got a much better rate down at the Courtyard. They recently underwent a multi-million-dollar renovation as well. It kind of looks like a brand new hotel. There's a Starbucks down in the lobby. It is less than a block from the conference center. From door to door is about 3.5 minutes. And that's if you walk at a James pace. If you walk at a Justin Grody pace, you can be there in about 1.5 minutes. So it's a lot of, it's a whole lot closer. We did like the fact that we were all in the same building, but around Thursday, by the time Thursday rolled around, you're like, man, I wish I had some sunlight. So the Maiden Bower has that nice mezzanine and terrace that you can go out on, and it's all that natural sunlight coming in. So we're really excited about the change of venues. It's also good to mix things up some as well. You don't want to. It's not a rinse and repeat every year, for sure.
I like that you're talking about the coffee. All day coffee is coming back, and then also there's a Starbucks in the lobby. If people are wondering what the number one priority on that week is,
yes, it is. It is definitely coffee.
It is very hard to be social a week without coffee, I found.
Yeah. And so another big change that we're bringing back this year. So if you've been with us for a long time, you might remember that we used to do workshops on Mondays. So Summit used to be a 3-day event Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with all-day workshops on Monday. So we're bringing those workshops back. We're still not quite sure exactly what the schedule is going to look like, but that schedule is going to get posted around December 15th. But we're bringing, the goal is we have to go back and look at the CFPs, but we're going to do workshops on Mondays or on Monday. So it's a 4-day event. They're not separate tickets. They're just, that's what you're paying for. So we're going to do those workshops, and these are 3.5 hour workshops. Really deep dive, kind of follow along with me as we kind of get into some deep stuff. We wanted to do that on Monday as opposed to the last day, because by the time Thursday rolls around, your brain is already mush. The last thing you want is a 3-hour deep dive on what is Kubernetes and how it works.
I like that a lot. It also leaves the week to like follow up conversations with the speakers or other people who were in the in attendance.
Yeah, and then we're still working some things out on how we're gonna try to make sure that the speakers are more prominent and available throughout the week. And then we're also going to do what we call birds of a feather lunch. So basically during the lunchroom, so imagine a banquet room. We have we have the big rounds. There's like 10 chairs around them. We're gonna put every day. We're gonna have a different set of top conversation cards on the tables. Some will be tech related. Some will not be tech related. So the idea is you'll go around and kind of find a conversation that interests you, and then you and your friends that are at the same table kind of supposed to help move the conversations around towards whatever the topic is, as opposed to just finding a random seat and hoping the person next to you has something to talk about or doesn't, kind of depending on how you are.
Kind of help foster those conversations.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
So I do want to say, because I think there's more common than we might expect. Sometimes sitting just in the background and listening to a conversation, people get a lot of joy out of that. I know for me, not joining the conversation, but being present for it is actually something that is quite nice for me. So just having conversations to go there, people can go around and listen. I think that's going to be an extra win, even for those that aren't quite ready to jump in yet.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think being an engaged listener is also totally accepted. You don't have to be the one leading every convo. I've definitely found myself just intently listening, eye contact, smiling along, laughing, having a good time without having to be the expert at the particular subject. So definitely, yeah. Jordan.
So another good thing about moving to the courtyard is we have kind of what we're calling some quiet space. So it's still down. So basically we basically have the whole hotel. But they have some very smaller conference rooms that are still, they're bar adjacent. So they're close to where everyone is, but they're not exactly in the mainstream. So that's, so people can kind of go in and have some, they can be people adjacent, but they can still also kind of chill out. Because sometimes we need a break. We can't be on all the time.
Nice. Yeah. And I think some people just don't like socializing in loud environments, and having some options that are a little bit more low key, or maybe some places to kind of refresh and reset. It's awesome. Love to see that kind of improvements.
And most if not all of these came straight from feedback that we got from, at the end of Summit.
No surprise to hear that. Seems like everybody in this community understands that feedback and growth and learning from mistakes is the way to go about things. So cool to see you all living out those values.
So I'm curious about this the new book, because Manning has published a lot of books. I've never seen them shout out praise before for someone that wrote so many chapters so quickly that it's like, this was amazing. So what does it take to get a publisher of thousands of books to comment on how productive you've been on writing?
That was 6 chapters in one day.
In one day? Is that it? I keep on expecting you to wow me, but my goodness.
Yeah, it was definitely it was definitely a lot, but it was also I was way behind schedule on the book. It was supposed to be out like I think last year, or if not like early, like February of this year. So way behind. So it's just finally like, all right, I'm gonna buckle down, knock this out.
And you did knock it out.
You did. Yeah,
books are huge undertakings.
They are. It is a lot of work, and you get. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Especially, I know you added a young one to the mix in the past year or so. So
Right. Yeah.
mixing
So
that.
my youngest just turned 1 last month, so she's almost walking. So we're in trouble.
Time's flying. But for those who aren't aware, so I think we've had you on and we talked about PowerShell in the Month of Lunches. That's a book that's often recommended, and I think people might be a little bit familiar. But this is not that book. This is what is this book we're talking about here?
Right. So this is Learn PowerShell Scripting in a Month of Lunches. So this is kind of if you want to think of it like a volume 1, volume 2. So we take the core concepts that we learned in the first book, and then we come into this book to become what is commonly referred to as a tool maker. So there's a lot of new concepts that are introduced here into the book. But if you need to make sure you have those core concepts down first, that's what the first book teaches you. But some of the things that are a little different about this book than most Manning books is, one, not every chapter has a lab. Because sometimes we don't need a lab on how to read the help file. Things like that. But then also there are some labs in there that don't have the answers to them, and that's on purpose, because the idea is we want to make sure that kind of what you're doing, and then or if you don't know, it's time for you to figure it out. It's time for us to stop providing the answers for you and for you to go on. There's 10 different ways on how to get your SAM account name out of AD. So it's just one of those, like, find out what works for you and continue on that way.
Nice. Yeah, I find that it's really helpful to learn by doing, especially when you're getting to the more complicated subjects and when you're building on knowledge. Having kind of a practical use case to put it to is good to solidify the knowledge.
Yeah, and we also have we do provide some working examples as well, but we also take kind of a core script. So we take the idea of a script, and we take the script to a function, and then from a function to a module, and then from the module we write a tester test for it, and then from there we publish it to the PowerShell gallery. So we kind of go through the whole process from end to end on, and the chapter is built on all these little steps it takes to get there.
So in the first book, Month of Lunches, PowerShell Scripting in a Month of PowerShell in a Month of Lunches, you're more learning how to use the tool of PowerShell and put commands together and navigate all that. Whereas PowerShell Scripting is when you create your own tools. It sounds like kind of teaching you the way to properly create and maintain your own tooling.
Right. We spent a couple of chapters going through the design elements. A lot of times, people like you and me, Jordan, like, sometimes we'll just like, okay, I have a problem. I'm going to set the keyboard and, I'm going to design a tool the hard way. The correct way to do it is to whiteboard it, figure out what it's going to look like. What does it need to do? What do you want it to do? What are the inputs supposed to be? What are the outputs going to be? What is outputs going to look like? So we kind of go through that whole process of taking it from like a bar napkin sketch and then ultimately ending up in the PowerShell gallery.
Yeah, because that's a lot. It's a lot of steps and a lot of things, and being able to go through a book where it kind of breaks it down for you can be really helpful. Because to me, at least, before I ever published a module or any of that, I was very overwhelmed by the whole idea of it. Like, there's so many steps to it, but being able to kind of plan things a little bit and take the burden off of your working brain space is massively helpful.
Yeah, and then also remember bite-sized pieces. My favorite line is, a function should do one thing. If it does two things, then you need two functions.
It's a good call.
So, and we definitely drive that home as well.
So for those that read first edition, I guess what new info is coming in so they could run and buy the new version so they get all the latest info?
So the book is still in the MEEP. So it's a Manning Early Access program. So if you want to go grab it, it's going to come out of a MEEP pretty soon. It's going to go away for just a little bit while the content editor is doing their thing. So they're going through and fixing all of the misspellings. The PowerShell, for those who don't know, PowerShell has a capital P and a capital S. So we definitely want to, they're going through and making sure that all those little spelling things are done, and it'll come back on the shelf sometime in, I believe, early April. But I think right now there's no more content coming out because the whole book is out in the MEEP.
So coming up just in time for Summit. So if you want James's
Right.
signature,
Maybe it'll come out by then. But I think to answer your initial question is this book was rewritten from the first edition, which was originally written for PowerShell 3. And then there was kind of a mini revision from 3 to 5.1. And then I think the Pester chapter might have been updated to go to Pester 5. But we just we took the whole book and kind of uplifted it to make sure that everything we did worked in PowerShell 7, which was like some of the commands are not going to work in may not work in PowerShell 5. And we definitely had to go through, the original, everything was built on WMI. Those who don't know, WMI commands don't exist in PowerShell 7. So we had to go through and, replace all those, rework a lot of those examples.
Nice. And I can say that whenever I was learning PowerShell back in the day, I went through the month of lunches to the scripting and a month of lunches kind of route, and I really enjoyed it. It's a very nice way to learn things. And I don't know, I enjoyed the lunch of months like kind of format.
Yeah. The format is definitely unique as far as technical books go. Each chapter is designed to take no more than an hour, and that's including the lab. Except for there was one chapter when we're like, you should need to take a long lunch break. I think it's chapter 17. Or like, you should take a long lunch break for this one.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that having a conversation with managers about like, hey, I kind of need some time. I want to learn this new skill. Is it okay if I spend an hour each day kind of working on it? At the end, I would like to be able to automate hour this or that, or start developing solutions for this, or, having a conversation with your boss so you can have management buy-in for you to learn this new stuff, for you to hopefully expense books and promote you as a individual at work to do your best and to grow and keep contributing awesome stuff. And PowerShell is awesome and will make your security posture better, improve your automation, and free you up to work on more important problems.
Right. Like, let me spend a little bit of time now to learn this cool automation tool so that we can fix a lot of our problems later.
Yeah.
So since you're most likely to be going to someone who less technical, instead of going in here to do, it's a return on investment. If you let me spend these man hours costing this now, here is the return value that I can get for it. Once you can prove that the cost benefit alone, it'd be ridiculous not to. That's when they're going to sign you up.
Yep.
Right.
Got to start having those conversations, though. I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people never talk to their boss about growth or about what their plans are to improve in the future or anything like that. And if you can start having those convos and start understanding what your manager is looking for, getting on the same page there, you're going to be able to develop faster. So awesome.
Plus, it gives a opportunity. If they just say no flat out, it's a great moment for you. Because then you learn it on your own. Then you take that, you get a new job with it, and you say, "Hey, look, I learned this skill, and now they're going to benefit."
Someone's going to benefit.
Yeah.
I think employers should really want their employees to be engaged and wanting to learn and to support and reward that type of behavior. I think is in any technical manager's best interest. But hey, who am I to say? So definitely, it sounds like you've been super busy writing some awesome new resources to get people into PowerShell. I look forward to picking up the book and hopefully picking up a signature from the important petty in the world.
I can't think of any petty in American history that has had more relevance and impact on this country.
Nobody by the name of Tom.
Tom needed the backup of all of the heartbreakers, all right? James is out here crushing it daily.
True. James, I have a very important question. You know that SQL thing?
I can spell it.
How do you pronounce it? Is it SQL or is it SQL?
Ooh. SQL.
Jordan, what about you?
I've always said SQL, but I've never been confident it's right.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier and I saw a little bit of a meme about, is it a SQL dev or an SQL dev? I'm kind of undecided myself. I remember whenever I started, I was like, yo, SQL, that's what it is. But then SQL, it just rolls off the tongue. And once you hear it enough, you kind of just got to go with it. So we'll go with SQL.
So we've had Chrissy Lemaire, Jess Pomfret, many people in here that are experts on it, and we never once asked them this question.
Oh, let's ask James.
Well, maybe when you have them on for their 3P, you can ask them.
True. And you know, we have some plans with Chrissy coming down the pipe, so stay tuned for that early next year.
That sounds fun.
It always is. James, are you an AI guy? Are you into AI at all? Are you using it at all?
I'd play with Chat GPT some.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no free time.
I feel you. You're not a pioneer.
No, I'm letting Doug and Chrissy get all the kinks worked out, and then I'll just kind of go
clean up. Yeah.
Yep.
Me too.
Just go into the repo and like fix a comma, and then go in as a contributor.
Right, there you go.
Open source contributor. Update that resume. That's exciting.
So I do have a question here. So you've got dad for newborn, full-time job, sitting on the chair of a nonprofit. With all of that, what made you sit back and go like, you know what? I'm gonna go teach at a community college too. Like, how do you get there?
So I really enjoy teaching the basics. So that's what I teach. I teach a PowerShell introduction to PowerShell, introduction to Windows Server administration, and introduction to server virtualization. So I really enjoy teaching at the community college over a traditional college because we get to do a lot of hands-on. We're not theory based. It's like, okay, here we go, and we dive right in. We're hands-on keyboard every day. So it does make my day a little long. So I teach there 8 to 9. I come work here like 9:30 to 5:30, and then I go home with the kids and stuff. So it does kind of make for a long day, but it's really fun. It's really rewarding. My classes are small. Like I had 7 people in my class last time, so it was the student to teacher ratio was really low. I got to spend a lot of one-on-one time with the students, and I had the same students for all 3 classes. So we do 7-week semester. So I have two classes in the fall and 1 class in the spring. So I had the same students for a year, 3 semesters for almost a full year. So we get to know each other pretty well during that. And so it's just a lot of fun.
Sounds fun. I was a beneficiary of community college IT teaching on the same kind of like small class basis that you're talking about. And it's actually a pretty important role, at least for here in the States, for educating local workforces. Like I think that at least where I went to college, they're like in communication with local companies about like what skills are people hiring for. And for so many, like that's the pipeline for how they get their talent, and what they learn in college actually reflects what happens in companies. So it's really cool to hear that there's a PowerShell course, and we're kind of teaching people from who actually know their stuff, Microsoft MVP, for example, and you. I'd love to be a student in your class.
I'd sit in. Can we audit? Do you have a virtual audit for your classroom?
Yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome to come if you want to move here to Chattanooga. It's kind of a long commute from Utah.
A little bit.
Do you find that like students are super engaged? Do they get the bigger picture? Are they trying to get a job? Like, what's the perspective of a student like from what you've seen?
Normally, by the time they come in, because I get them towards the end of the 2 year of their track, assuming they're following the curriculum. So I get them towards the end, so they kind of have their mind made up on what route they want to go, whether that be a networking route, operations route, or a cybersecurity. I don't get any of the programmers. They have their own. They have their own courses. They do the C++ and the Java and the assembly language and all that good stuff. But for the most part, like I try to give real world examples of what we do. I incorporate a lot of my own experiences into that as well. And then we also have, while we're waiting for something to run, or half the class is done, the other half's not. We'll throw in some of the soft skill stuff in there as well, because most of them do have part-time jobs. At least usually about half of them are in the IT field. Some of them are off working at Lowe's or Home Depot somewhere, but for the most part, they're in the they're in IT field, so we're able to kind of like, I have this problem. How would you help me navigate it? Type thing. And like I said, we're together for an hour a day, 4 days a week for a year or so. So we kind of get the.
That's
So we
cool.
we talk about a lot.
What do they think about all your PowerShell stuff, like the talking and the book and all this? Do they like that stuff, or what do they think about it?
They're like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they don't have the full perspective of. Well, I guess some of them do from being in the industry a bit, but that's a pretty unique opportunity.
So I didn't go to a community college. I wish I had, because it would have saved me so much. But I also know that my instructor was not a multi-time MVP, published author, and all-around legend of the community. So not only did I pay more, I got less for it.
I think
Yeah,
that's
I
the
did know-
benefit for like the college, like community college stuff, is that it's smaller classrooms, it's more intimate, you get more access, it's more kind of hands-on-ish from what I've seen.
Yeah, I do know the students say they like. So my approach to teaching is no quizzes, no tests, no homework. Like everything is practical, lab based. And so they, towards the end, they tell me they get more out of that than by being quizzed on, hey, here's an IP address, subnet it, like trying to do things like that. But those are not bad skills. They're just not.
It's not
very
hands-on.
practical. It's not hands-on, and I'm not a networking guy. Like,
Yeah, and also when it
I know
comes
the
to
slash 24 is, and that's about it.
yeah, and 790 is one of those things that, with the occasional exception, is you build it out and then that's it, right? Unless you've grown a lot or you're looking for some sort of new segmentation of your work environment, it's kind of locked in.
Yeah, how many times are you gonna manually configure a Cisco switch? Like, not many.
And if it is-
Twice in college, never in work.
Yeah, and if it is your job, it becomes working knowledge real quick. Like you'll have to relearn it anyways and refresh yourself, and then you're doing it regularly. Well, there you go. It's in your working.
Or
knowledge.
if I had to do it manually every single time,
Automate it.
I'm leaving.
Yeah, yeah. I would definitely not enjoy that myself, but I actually really enjoyed the Cisco classes early on. My favorite thing about the community college thing was like being able to have all these things and topics that I didn't know anything about, and then actually get hands-on experience and be like, oh, this actually isn't magic. There's actually ways to do this, and accepted practices and stuff like that. And it's not just me having to figure out how every piece of software works on my own and how it all communicates. It's like, nah, there's a whole industry and a happy path you can take to start learning all this stuff. Do you like do VMs and stuff for all your labs, or do you have them set up their environments?
Yeah, so we have a rack of servers, and then we kind of start. I'm like, okay, everyone needs to bring a USB drive, and then we start. Like everyone, is it because there's only 7 of them, so everyone got their own server. I'm like, I broke one of my cardinal rules. I'm like, this is your puppy. Like, you need to care and feed for it for the rest of the semester.
Did anyone hardboil their server?
Right, but then once we got to the virtualization class, we did the same thing. We installed the bare bones OS, and then from there we built out our virtual infrastructure.
Have you learned anything about teaching PowerShell, like since starting the community college stuff?
For sure, there's always, like you said, there's always different ways to do things. So some of my students already had kind of a working knowledge. They're like, well, I thought we did it this way. It's like, well, you can. Like, there's not. There's a lot more ways than just, than one way to go and do things. But also being reminded that some of these kids have never seen PowerShell before ever. So like sometimes you gotta remember, like, you have to slow down, and like when I'm say command, like if I say get AD user and PowerShell, there's a hyphen in there. If you've never seen PowerShell before, you don't know that there's a hyphen in between get and AD. So they type in get space AD user, and they're like, "What's happening? Like, why isn't this working?" So like, having to remember to I have to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
Just so I can help them sometimes. Like,
Does it help you learn and like re-solidify what you know, or is it already so cemented that it's just kind of the same?
No, it definitely. I learn something new every time. Every week when we have a class, always learn something new.
Are there any? Do you get to see the light bulb moment for your students?
Sometimes like there's definitely a moment like when you see like when they get it, and then there's the ones that are like I just want to get through this class, and then there's the ones who really try. I'm like, okay, like yeah, you're finally getting it.
Interesting. Do you find that people who have industry experience are more receptive to it?
Usually, it's a big spike because they're already using it on a daily basis or on a semi-daily basis. So they get to take what we're doing and take it back to a real world practicality very fast.
Nice.
Whereas the other people like, all right, I hope I remember this tomorrow.
I guess it makes sense. I went to school for networking, which is funny. That was one. If we don't do that, I have never used my degree. And I don't think I remembered a single thing from graduation. My degree is not worthwhile.
But you have one.
I do.
I used community college to learn the basics and get the proficiency to get a job in IT. And then I just I think I had like maybe one or two more IT classes that I didn't really care about, like SQL or something else. No offense to SQL devs. But yeah, I just got the job in industry and then just been working up ever since. But I really did enjoy the relationship I had with my professors and being able to learn like that. Like for me, I didn't know much about computers. I mean, I played video games. That's about my extent of computer knowledge before. And so it was kind of an eye-opening experience to go through all that and kind of pave the way for what some of my career would look like, and to take a programming class where I technically passed it, but did I learn anything? I don't really know. Like, I don't think it helped me that much whenever I got into PowerShells. Like I've done a for loop before, but I was in C++.
Yeah, I did 2 semesters of C++, and I couldn't. I don't even know if I could compile a program right now. Like, I don't
right?
even know.
What is that? We need that to be PowerShell or some other language.
So I was sitting here talking about all the things we don't remember from school is a more solid case for community college. I think that's where everyone should go for their generals, at least, just because the savings alone, and you knock out all those credits you don't have to pay for, or you don't have to pay state university prices for. It's a great deal. I hope my daughter follows that path. I hope my daughter goes to college.
How fast into your curriculum do you introduce the help system?
Oh, that's day 1.
Okay.
Well, I say probably day 2. So day 1, like, all right, here's PowerShell. Let's, because a lot of times the computers are not always up to date. So it takes a day or 2 sometimes to actually get the machines up and running. But then we're like, all right, here's how we do the help system.
What about errors? Do you find that people just kind of like see the red text and ignore it? Or do you have to give a lesson on like, hey, actually read the error messages?
Yeah, so luckily we use PowerShell 7, so the error messages are a whole lot better than Windows PowerShell. But I normally make the first mistake because I'm a terrible typist. So everything's a teaching moment. So anytime we get an error, like we always stop and anytime I have an error, it's up on the screen. We stop and look. We're like, what happened? Most of the time, I fat fingered something. We're like, let's look at the error. Let's see what the error is telling us. And then we kind of go from there.
What's the hardest topic to teach? Or the one that they have the hardest time kind of wrapping their head around?
Teaching new people that tab completion is a thing.
Really?
And that you don't have to type everything out.
I could see that. If you don't have any experience with like command line type stuff, like I could see that.
Like if we're running get AD user, you like GET-ADU and then push the tab button and it'll get you there. Like you don't have to finger pick it out. And same thing with all of the with all the parameters. Like just get one letter and push tab through it. Because I had this one student in particular, and he would always misspell things. Like, and then we'd get errors, and then we start getting mad. Like I'm like, what's going on? Like, well, you misspelled this. So then he would backspace and he would start typing out again. I'm like, stop it. I'm like, use the freaking tab button.
I have the opposite problem. I hit tab too early. So I'll do get-AD and then I'll tab and then I'll start tabbing through.
And of course, the first couple of ones that are like 10,000 characters long.
A whole bunch. I've learned that if the first tab is just way long, I just tab again until I get a shorter one, then I delete.
And then go backwards. No, actually, I think that is one of the hardest concepts for new people, for someone who's new to PowerShell to understand, is that tab completion is a thing and that it is your friend and how to effectively use it.
Yeah, and if you tab complete a little too early, control backspace, bloop, delete everything you just typed, and you can start again.
You see,
And
learn something new.
Learn something new. And you know how we're tabbing through parameters? If you accidentally go one too far, instead of having to press tab to go all the way around again, you can press shift tab to go the other way. Yeah.
This is the educational segment.
Once you start applying it, it's hard not to.
So for those of you that are listening, when you go fill out your survey, we need Andrew's educational moment.
Yes. See, I've been pushing for Sports Corner, but no one's on board.
No,
I mean, we
don't
mentioned pickleball. Yeah. I think, who was it? Somebody came up and, at the PowerShell conference EU thing, whenever I was talking to somebody, they're like, no, wait, it was Emil on the podcast. He asked us what pickleball was. Anyways, we've already talked about it too much.
Well, yeah, that's the point, though. We got 2 gold medalists every day talking and not talking sports. It is wasted potential.
One day. What are a couple of, do you see any misconceptions that your students have when learning PowerShell? Things they kind of expect to be one way when it's really not?
No, not generally, as that again, because most of them are, most students are come from a green field. Like they either if they use it at work, someone else has already written it for them. So they're just, they're running pre-canned scripts, or they've never seen it before. So it's usually it's one or the other. I've yet to have anyone. Yeah, I've only been doing it for a year. Only doing it for a year now, but I haven't had anyone who's kind of come and is like, I don't understand why it's not working this way. Like someone who's coming from a Python background or a C++ background or something like that. But ask me next year when you have me on for my yearly visit.
And we'll probably talk to you at Summit too, so you know.
Oh,
could even be even more than that.
Just watch
PDQ podcast. Yeah, PowerShell Podcast After Dark.
Yeah,
we'll get there at Summit, and he'll already have a new book. That's
yeah, something I think my wife would be terribly upset if I
taking a break.
to another book right now.
That's what people say, and then they get offers, and then they decide to write
exactly.
again. They forget the pain.
You can't stop a teacher from teaching.
It's true. I told myself I'd never write again for a book, and I only had to write 1 chapter. But it's been long enough. I've probably forgot the pain too.
So I'm curious about the editing, because the editing I go through for blogs, I'm sure is not near. But for me, the hardest part was they'd make like these minor changes and like ask me if that's okay. I'm like, I don't care. Like if you don't feel like you're messing with the code of what I've written, then have at it. I don't care. Is that similar for books, or is it more locked in?
No, it is. So the first round drafts go through. Then a technical editor comes through. So someone, so my technical editor is Wes, and Wes is fantastic. He's very knowledgeable in PowerShell. So he's going through and reading it, and he's testing the code, making sure the code works, making sure that everything, the paragraphs flow good. Like he's make sure he can kind of pick up and follow on it. He makes a lot of comments like, first, new to someone who's new-ish to PowerShell may not understand what this is. You may want to expand on it a little bit. So we'll do that a couple times, and then so that we just finished that. So now the copy editor comes in. And that's probably what you're referring to. She's going to come through and fix all the grammatical errors. She's going to put commas where they're supposed to be. And Manning has a particular voice that they'd like the books to be written in. So she'll go through and change a lot of that stuff to make it fit like the styling guide that Manning has.
Nice. Now,
but like you said, it's also the same thing. Like I have to approve everything because they want to make sure that I'm not like we may be trying to make something grammatically correct, but that doesn't, but that might take away from what we're going through. Or let's say she's not a PowerShell person, so she doesn't know anything about the code. So she's making sure we don't change a parameter to something or
right. Make sure it still all makes sense.
Yeah,
given the context. Cool. Sounds like quite the process. I wanted to circle back, though. We might have covered this in a previous podcast, but what were your initial days like when you got involved in speaking and at Summit and with this whole journey you've been on ever since then? What was your kind of entry point?
So that started in I believe it was 16. It was either 16 or 17. I met Jason Helmlich and Jeff Hicks. We were at the bar in the courtyard. We had left. We were at not check. We were at. Oh, what's that? What's the name of that place on the third floor of the Bellevue Mall? Anyways, we at Tavern Hall. We just left. We left Tavern Hall for the Wednesday night party a little early because we were kind of. It was me and my friend Little John. So we just left a little early, took an Uber back, and then met Jeff and Jason in the down the bar down there. Somehow we got in the conversation that they were looking. They were trying to make their exit plans. Trying to find their replacements. And I had just happened to finish creating the filing like all the IRS paperwork and doing the taxes and stuff for my fraternity's alumni association. So then Jason's like, "Oh, I have to do all that too. We should talk." And then I think that must have been 2017 because then 2018. My year's mixed up. Anyways, so the next year I attended Summit as kind of the incoming CFO, and then in 2019, Will Anderson stepped down as the CEO, and then I kind of filled that role from there.
When did you start speaking?
It was I think I believe it was 2018 was my first speaking gig, and it was at Summit.
So
it's one of those things. So like I had this idea, so I'd implemented Gia at my old job, and I had told Jason Helmlich kind of what I had done, and he was like, "That's really good. Like you should talk about that." I'm like, I don't know how to write an abstract or talk or anything. So he kind of took me under his wing, helped me write the abstract, gave me some coaching tips. I did a couple of practice presentations with him, and to kind of help get the nerves and the jitters out.
See,
and then went from there.
I know, like you and Don and Jason, they've all said basically we were looking to step back. It was time for the new generation. It's always sounded peaceful, but in my mind, that's not how it went down. I like to think that you were like a warlord. You went in and you're like, I'm taking over, and Don's like, no. You guys battled. It was like a 3-day battle, a scripting battle, and you came out on top. And he had to resign. That's how it's always going to go down in my head.
Okay.
We'll take it.
Believe me, I cannot script against Jason.
Jason would be a tough one. Jeff would be tough as well.
Yes.
That's exciting in my mind. That's history is set up here.
So were you friends with Jason before that first convo, or was it just
never met him before a day in my life?
Really?
Outside
How
of,
was that?
It was fine. I mean, outside of the hey, I'm James, I'm an attendee here.
Uh-huh.
And in the whole social circle. But yeah, that was the first time I actually really met him and said more than one sentence to him.
And then eventually you became an MVP along the way for your community contributions and spoke at more conferences. And I think I was at Spice World recently too.
Yeah, I spoke at Spice this year. I spoke at Spice World and the Boston VMUG. So that was a lot of fun.
Nice. What did you present at the VMUG?
They were both a PowerShell security session.
Nice. Those are always good. I feel like that's the thing that we can really get more of is people actually implementing and using the security features in PowerShell, as we've definitely mentioned on the podcast a few times. Right. Such an important topic. Awesome. Well, Jordan, these have been some easy questions. James has crushed it. Do you have any hard hitters stored away somewhere deep in that beautiful noggin?
I have a couple. I'm just going to, off the top of my head, this is the idea that I thought of.
Oh.
Apologies to Jess for stealing your intellectual property. Common parameters is what I've decided to call it.
That's creative.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at this. No big deal. Are you ready for the 3 most difficult questions you're ever going to get?
Is it the same thing that you ask everyone else?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Okay.
I mean, I'll spice it up. I'll change like a conjunction or something.
Put a
change a
comma somewhere.
pause, dramatic pause in the middle.
Right. With what's one time that something went incorrect? See that while on the job, and what did you learn from it? It's a new question.
Oh, let's see here. Well, there was this one time when I rebooted every print server in 7 states. That was fun.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I assume PowerShell was
so print-
involved to get that mean at once. I assume.
Well, yeah, it was PowerShell.
Yeah.
So because I take that back. I didn't reboot the printers. I rebooted the print servers. And of course, half of them didn't come back up correctly. So printing was down for like an hour.
In some industries, that's a big deal.
Yeah, especially when maintenance people are trying to print out work orders, and the union contract says that if there's not a printed work order out, they can't do anything. Yeah, that was fun.
And you don't do anything small. It's all grandiose.
No, but there was one thing that my manager told me. He goes, everyone's allowed to make mistakes. He goes, you're just not allowed to make the same mistake twice.
So
that was the end of our conversation. It's like, that's awesome.
So next time you only bring down half the print servers. Brand new. All right, you passed. You passed the first one. Are you ready for the second common parameter?
Go for it.
With all of your vast knowledge, what is one tip you would give your younger self when you're first starting IT?
Oh, let's see here. First starting IT, probably ask more questions. Like I was I'm just going to do my job. And if they want me to do something, they will tell me that they want me to do it. It took me a long time to go figure out that I have to go tell my boss sometimes that I'm out of stuff to do because they're really busy and they forget that you don't have assignments or you did it faster than they anticipated. So yeah, because it's kind of a bad look when you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, nothing to do, like browsing LinkedIn and Facebook all day, and your boss walks by and they don't know that you don't have anything to do. They think you're just slack assing.
Yeah. They never swing by when you're in the middle of an intense coding session.
No, never. It's always when you're on Facebook.
That's actually the universal rule of ping pong if you have it in the office as well. The moment you pick up the paddle.
The boss comes by.
Yep. All right, you're doing good. But this is the last one, and this one is legitimately just an awful question.
Okay.
It is so hard to answer. What are your 3 favorite modules?
Favorite modules.
We should change that one just because it's not a fair question.
Right. So I use import Excel a lot.
That's a good one.
Managers like Excel documents. They don't like CSVs. I've been playing around with the Graph API here a lot here recently. There's a lot, because the Azure AD module is now is poof or is about to be poof, along with the SharePoint Online and all those. Anything dealing with management of Azure users is probably a better way to put it. So having to deal with Graph a lot and get that all set up. And then a third mod. What is the third module that I use? See, there's so many things that just come just ready to go now.
Have you heard of our friend PS Readline?
All right, I guess we'll probably have to go. We'll go with just the Azure, because the Azure module is still. Actually, I just installed it earlier today on machine.
Easy.
I don't know. Can we count Chocolatey as a module? Does that count?
I mean, it's a good one. You do a lot of great things with Chocolatey. We're gonna allow it. All right. So now that you got that out of the way, which I mean, you persevered. That's not easy. We're proud of you. You made it through. But now we got a treat for you.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if you're aware. You've been sitting in the presence of a celebrity, just a legend. Andrew Plough is so good at shilling that the only question more difficult than your 3 favorite modules is what's your favorite Andrew Plough shill? Because, I mean, how do you pick one out of all of that perfection? It's impossible. but we have a front row seat to listen to a true expert just spin pure gold. All right, take it away, Andrew.
Hello, dear listeners. Thank you. Jordan, I like the juxtaposition of that other guy is what you call me in the intro, and then we get this lovely intro for the shill.
Oh, you're mixing up that we recorded 2 today. That other guy was the one that dropped last week.
What did you say this week or this episode?
I can't remember.
Something similar. It was similar. It was
friendly this time. I got you.
You were the legend. I was the, I'm here. But yeah, thanks. If you're listening, you've made it to the end. Thank you. You are one of our closest listeners. And if you have been listening this long, I'm sure you have some great feedback for us. Hopefully this isn't your first episode, nor your last. And in fact, we have a podcast survey we'd love you to fill out, which we told you about earlier, and I won't mention again, other than saying check the show notes for a link to do it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Give us a like, comment, or subscription on YouTube. Hit the bell to be notified of new content. And if you're listening to us on a podcast platform, as so many of you are, thank you to our listeners, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Jordan, we are worldwide. We are here. We are there. We are everywhere. If you would like to send us some feedback directly, you can hit us up at PowerShell Pod or PowerShell@pdq.com. I'm Andrew Plotek. He's DevOps Jordan. And James, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for all you do for the community. And if people want to tap in with you and reach out and see what you're doing, where can we find you on this World Wide Web?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, or X. You can also hit me up on the PowerShell forums or the PowerShell Discord. I'm at PS James P at everywhere. Obviously not LinkedIn, but I'm really, really easy to find on LinkedIn. But
yeah, and I'd love to hear it if some listeners end up blogging for the PowerShell.org blog. I'd love to hear about that.
Oh yeah, me too.
All right, I would recommend in the PowerShell changing your username to Professor Petty, just because people need to know.
I will take that under advisement.
That's a friendly no. All right, thank you so much for your time.
All right, thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.